Imagine standing in a supermarket aisle. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a sterile glow on the endless shelves in front of you. You're here for something simple, say a jar of peanut butter. But instead of a few straightforward options, you're confronted with 37 varieties, each claiming to be better than the last. Organic, crunchy, extra crunchy, no sugar, low sodium, stone ground, honey roasted, single origin, imported, locally sourced. Your hand hovers over one jar, then another. You freeze. And then something strange happens. You begin to feel not empowered, but overwhelmed. What should have been a mundane, even pleasant task now feels like a quiet, creeping crisis. What if you choose wrong? What if there's a better one? What if this one has palm oil, or that one isn't ethically sourced? What if, after all your thinking, you end up disliking the one you picked? It's just peanut butter, but it's not. Now zoom out. Your closet, your Netflix queue, your job board, your dating app, your Amazon cart, your life. Every choice you face today, whether trivial or life-defining, comes with a burden masked as freedom. You can be anything, do anything, go anywhere. Swipe left, swipe right, keep scrolling. The horizon of possibility never ends, and that should feel liberating. But it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes it feels like a curse. We were told that more options would bring more happiness. That freedom to choose would elevate us beyond previous generations. That abundance would solve dissatisfaction. So why do you so often feel anxious, restless, or paralyzed? Why does more lead not to fulfillment, but to regret? Why do we stand in front of a wardrobe filled with clothes and think, I have nothing to wear? Why do we scroll endlessly, yet feel emptier with every passing reel? Why do we swipe through hundreds of profiles but find it harder than ever to commit? The more you can choose, the less satisfied you often feel. And the more likely you are to wonder, what if I chose differently? This is the paradox. Choice was supposed to set you free, but what if it's become your prison? Each new option creates the illusion of control, but also the pressure of responsibility. If you're unhappy, it's your fault. After all, you chose this. You had options. So the dissatisfaction isn't just disappointment, it's self-blame, guilt, shame. And yet, you're told to keep choosing, keep optimizing, keep comparing, keep customizing everything from your morning coffee to your personal identity. Life becomes an endless configuration screen, and you're the unwilling user toggling sliders in a game you didn't design. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is the architecture of modern life itself? How it conditions you to believe that more is always better, that endless freedom is synonymous with happiness. Can too much freedom become a kind of tyranny? Can too many options become a form of psychological warfare? You were never meant to carry the weight of infinite choices. Not about careers, partners, products, or personas. Your brain is a beautifully evolved tool, but it wasn't built for this. It wasn't built for a life of constant scrolling, second-guessing, and optimization. Somewhere along the way, the abundance that was meant to liberate you began to suffocate you. So ask yourself, when was the last time you made a choice and felt completely at peace? When was the last time you stopped searching? And when did choosing stop feeling like an act of freedom and start feeling like an obligation? You think you're deciding, but what if the system is choosing for you by overwhelming you into numbness? Algorithms nudging your hand while you believe it's yours. You were promised clarity. You got noise. You were promised happiness. You got anxiety. You were promised freedom. But now you find yourself stuck in the illusion of infinite paths, unsure where any of them lead. And maybe, just maybe, that's not an accident. Maybe this isn't a glitch. Maybe it's the design. And if that's true, then the question isn't which option to choose. It's why you're choosing it all. Let the weight of that question settle in your mind, because the real problem hasn't even begun to show itself. The flood of choice you face today isn't natural, it's engineered. not just by algorithms and advertising, but by a cultural myth so deeply embedded you barely notice it anymore. The idea that happiness is a direct function of freedom, and that freedom is the ability to choose endlessly. But not all freedoms liberate, some fracture. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Man is condemned to be free." He wasn't celebrating liberty, he was warning you. In a world without divine authority or universal meaning, you must invent your own essence. Every decision is yours, every failure too. It's existential vertigo, the dizziness of having too many paths and no map. Carl Jung saw something similar. He believed that the psyche demands integration, a unification of conscious will and unconscious desire. But the modern self is fragmented, pulled in 1,000 directions by competing identities and desires. You're not integrating, you're splitting. Choice, in excess, fractures identity. When everything is possible, nothing feels stable. And underneath it all runs a deeper hunger, one Viktor Frankl captured after surviving Auschwitz: the need for meaning. Not stimulation, not comfort, not variety, meaning. And meaning, paradoxically, often arises from commitment, not freedom, from choosing one path and bearing its weight. But today, you're encouraged to keep options open. Try everything. Optimize. Don't settle. What if something better comes along? Arthur Schopenhauer, the great pessimist, might have nodded grimly. He believed the human will was a source of endless suffering, a striving that could never be satisfied. The more you want, the more you chase. The more you chase, the more hollow you feel. So how did we end up here? Start with consumer capitalism. The economy thrives on desire, not contentment. You're more profitable when you're dissatisfied. The more choices you're given, the more you compare. The more you compare, the more insecure you become. Insecurity drives consumption. The cycle continues. Then there's social media, an infinite scroll of curated lives and artificial perfection. Every swipe is a reminder. You could have more, be more, date better, live richer, look cooler. And every choice you make feels smaller, cheaper, less worthy. Because now, you're not just choosing peanut butter. You're choosing an identity, a tribe, a future. And if you regret it, that's on you. This is the hidden cruelty. When choices multiply beyond reason, the self becomes unstable. You no longer ask, "What do I want?" You ask, "What should I want? What do others want from me? What's trending?" And slowly, you stop listening to the quiet voice within, the one that once knew. The problem isn't abundance, it's disorientation. You weren't built for this many paths, this many selves. And yet, you still chase the next option, hoping that clarity lies just one choice away. But what if every step forward only deepens the maze? You think you're choosing freely. But behind the scenes, something else is happening. Each time you weigh 100 different paths, whether it's which show to watch, what career to pursue, or whom to love, you trigger a series of mental traps. The first is analysis paralysis, the cognitive freeze that occurs when too many options overwhelm your ability to decide. The brain, faced with uncertainty, hesitates. You scroll, refresh, delay. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind is choking on abundance. Then comes decision fatigue. Every choice, even a small one, depletes your mental resources. Neuroscience confirms it. Willpower and focus are finite. The more you use them, the more they drain. By the end of the day, you're not avoiding decisions because you're disinterested. You're burned out. But the most corrosive effect is post-choice regret. The more options you had, the more responsibility you carry for the outcome. If the job disappoints, the vacation underwhelms, the partner isn't perfect, you blame yourself. I could have chosen better. The shadow of the what if becomes your constant companion. Barry Schwartz, who coined the term the paradox of choice, calls it the escalation of expectations. When you have many options, your standards rise. You expect more. And even if you make a good choice, The existence of better possible choices diminishes your satisfaction. You didn't just pick A, you rejected B through Z, and that rejection haunts you. Suddenly, joy isn't pure, it's contaminated. And this isn't just individual, it's systemic. We've created a culture that worships optionality. You're praised for keeping your doors open, staying flexible, never committing too early. But that same culture hides the cost, the erosion of depth, focus, and contentment. Everything becomes replaceable, and so nothing feels sacred. Dating apps train you to see people as products, endless profiles to swipe, sample, discard. Streaming services turn stories into disposable background noise. The workplace rewards breadth over depth, adaptability over mastery. If you aren't evolving, pivoting, learning something new every quarter, you're falling behind. But what's the cost of never rooting? Of never choosing one thing long enough to become something? We don't notice how this erodes meaning because the erosion is slow, incremental, but over time, the effects are cumulative. Chronic dissatisfaction, a fractured sense of self, shallow relationships, the inability to trust your own desires. You become a wanderer in a hall of mirrors, where every reflection shows a different version of who you could be, but none of them feel real. This is the prison of abundance. Not that you lack options, but that your options have robbed you of solidity. And the longer you wait for clarity, the further you drift. But what if the answer isn't to wait at all? What if freedom begins only when you stop needing so many doors? You don't need more time. You don't need more information. You don't need more options. You need a rebellion. A deliberate, conscious refusal to worship at the altar of endless choice. A shift so subtle it's radical in today's culture. The act of choosing once, fully, without looking back. This isn't settling. This is sovereignty. Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." But he didn't mean that freedom should be avoided. He meant that once you've faced that dizziness, once you've stared into the abyss of infinite options, you must leap anyway. You must choose your path, knowing full well you're abandoning the others. True freedom isn't having everything. It's choosing something so completely that everything else becomes irrelevant. History remembers the ones who committed. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but spent his nights writing meditations not on conquest, but on clarity. He practiced the Stoic art of deliberate limits. Decide what is essential, discard the rest. Or take the samurai of feudal Japan, trained not just in combat but in stillness. Their code, Bushido, required fierce discipline and total dedication. There was honor in not having options, in choosing once and accepting all consequences. Today, you're told to leave your options open, to keep doors ajar. But every door left open divides your focus. And what you don't realize is that focus is power. You don't find yourself by sampling endlessly. You forge yourself by what you refuse. Start with something small. Pick one book, read it fully. Delete the dating apps, call one person, go deep. Stop scrolling past the discomfort. Sit with it. Then make harder cuts. Choose one path, even if it terrifies you, especially if it terrifies you. Because terror is the price of true freedom. You won't find peace in more. You'll find it in less, when less is chosen with full presence and conviction. It's counterintuitive. It will feel wrong at first. Your brain, addicted to novelty and variety, will resist. It will whisper, "But what if there's better?" That voice is the echo of a system designed to keep you unsatisfied. Ignore it. Instead, listen for the quieter voice, the one that says, "Stay, focus, finish." When you start living like this, rooted, focused, intentional, you'll begin to notice something strange. The anxiety fades. The background noise silences. And what remains is a life that feels whole, not because it has everything, but because it finally means something. This is your rebellion, not against society, but against the illusion that more will complete you. And when you reclaim your right to choose less, you reclaim yourself. Now imagine this. You've stripped everything back. You've chosen. You've committed. The noise quiets. And for the first time in a long time, you hear something that was always there, beneath the marketing, the scrolling, the comparisons. Your own voice. Not the curated self, not the algorithm-trained self, the real one, the ancient one, the one that doesn't need 100 versions of freedom to feel alive. Here's the truth you've been circling from the beginning. The more choices you have, the more fragmented you become. But when you embrace limits, not as constraints, but as clarity, you become whole. This is the great paradox. Freedom isn't the absence of boundaries, it's the conscious choosing of them. You've been taught to fear limits, to see them as weakness. But look closer. Every meaningful life is shaped by them. A great artist chooses one medium, one style, one obsession, and dives in until they vanish into the work. A parent chooses their child over their own comfort, over sleep, over freedom, and finds a deeper love than they thought possible. A monk chooses silence because he hates sound, but because he knows truth only emerges when the noise stops. Your highest self doesn't emerge in a sea of infinite paths. It emerges when you cut away the unnecessary and walk one path so deeply that it transforms you. You don't need 1,000 identities. You need one that you own completely. You don't need more time. You need more presence. You don't need more choices. You need more courage to choose what matters and let go of everything else. Most people never get here. They spend their lives in the waiting room of potential, always exploring, never becoming. They confuse motion with direction, curiosity with commitment, freedom with avoidance. But you've seen behind the curtain now. You understand that the seduction of choice is often just fear in disguise. Fear of missing out, fear of regret, fear of being wrong. And the only antidote to that fear is not more options. It's meaning. And meaning is born from sacrifice. From letting go of the infinite so you can fully enter the finite. Because life is not a buffet, it's a single meal. You either savor it or spend eternity wondering what else was on the menu. So choose something real. Choose something that matters. Let it cost you. Let it change you. And then live it completely. Because the deepest freedom is not in having everything. It's in becoming someone who no longer needs to. Thanks for watching.